This is Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast where we bring Jesus into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey guys, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. My email address is jason@sportspectrum.com. You can reach me there directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. And today's show is brought to you by Ronald Blue Trust. Their advisors applying biblical wisdom and technical expertise to help clients make wise financial decisions, experiencing clarity and confidence, and leave a lasting legacy. We all got questions about our financial future, about the current climate that exists right now with COVID-19 and the uncertainty. Ronald Blue Trust is the place to turn to for those questions. You can check them out at ronblue.com and tell them Sports Spectrum sent you, ronblue.com. Today on the show, we are excited to welcome Sam Collier to Sports Spectrum. Sam has a new book out. It's called A Greater Story, My Rescue, Your Purpose, and Our Place in God's Plan, released August 4th, 2020. The foreword was by Steve Harvey. And Steve Harvey plays actually a pretty big role in this conversation that we have today because it was on his show that Sam and his twin sister were reunited with their birth mother and their three other siblings on the show. How crazy is that? Because when Sam grew up, he did not grow up in the best of situations with his twin sister. His biological mom gave them up to foster care at a very young age, leaving them mistreated and rejected as infants. He was adopted into a loving family, but still felt crucial pieces of his life were missing until he learned to lean on his faith in Jesus. Sam right now is currently a speaker and host with North Point Ministries in Atlanta, Georgia. And he's got this new book, A Greater Story, that's out now. We do talk some sports as well. He's a bit of a sneakerhead, and you'll hear that story here today on Sports Spectrum. Take a listen to Sam Collier joining us today on the show. We are excited to welcome today to the show Sam Collier. He is an author, a first-time author, sort of, right, Sam? Is that the best way to describe it? First-time author, sort of?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the biggest publishing deal I've ever done. And so I'm like, I feel like this is the first one. I had one book before on Orange Leaders, which was an independent kind of publisher. But this one, I'm like, It's the bells and the whistles and all this. And, that one was a shorter book. This one, I'm like, took me a year or so. I mean, so many edits. So you can say it's my first one. And can I just say, a name like Jason Romano, wow. Right? I mean, I feel like you're an actor. I mean, are you famous?
No famous, no actors, but just my name, brother. Thanks to Joe and Linda, my mom and dad.
Love that name, Jason Romano.
I appreciate it. Well, it's good to meet you. We probably run in a lot of the same circles and have a lot of friends. And I know you're a speaker and a host as well for North Point Ministries in Atlanta, Andy Stanley's church, and huge fan of Andy's work and obviously work in both the leadership space, but obviously as a pastor as well for so many years. And now you got this book. And it's funny because I just wrote a book as well, and we're kind of releasing our books at the same time here. And I'm fascinated more to talk shop with you for a second, even though we are recording. We could probably do this off the air, but I think it's interesting trying to learn what it was like, this process of the book, why you decided to write it, how it came together, and what your hopes are for people when they read it.
Man, for sure. This whole process started at North Point under a guy named Jeff Henderson, who is one of the lead campus pastors there. Andy has just been such a great friend for a long time. I would be remiss if I didn't say, I'm not on staff at North Point, but I have been a part of that family and in that system. North Point has been such a large part of helping to launch me into the Christian world. And this story, A Greater Story, the book, it started at North Point after kind of the whole Steve Harvey piece, which we'll get into. They said, listen, you got to figure out how to put this in a sermon form. You got to figure out how to tell this. And we started telling this story, man, and people started reacting like crazy. And I said, you have those moments where you go, I could sit on a whiteboard and put plans together. But then there are those times where God interrupts your plans and he's like, I got something else I want to do. And that's what this, this has been. Process has been wild. I got a collaborator to help me out. Now, when many people hear that, they hear you didn't write the book, and that's not true.
I did the same thing. So trust me, I know you wrote the book.
Right. We wrote, but she came in and really helped me figure out what we need to say and what we don't need to say. And I think for me, because it's a story that's so close to my heart, and because I'm in it, when it's your life story, it's kind of hard to see the forest from the trees, when you're in it, because you're like, well, is this important? Is this important? And then there are things that you think are important that aren't actually important. Then there are things that you don't think are important that are actually, should be the focus of the book. So it was an amazing process, grueling process, especially going, major publishers, they take you in and out in different rounds of edits. And I'm like, I didn't know y'all had so many editors on staff. I mean, just like the copy editor, then this editor, and then the flow, and then, oh my gosh, design. So it's been awesome, man.
Yeah. What was that? I guess what's the great lesson or what you learned about yourself looking back now through this process? Because I remember when I wrote my first book, that was more of kind of similar to what your book's like in terms of my life story and some of the things I had to work through. And I felt like it was therapeutic, and I learned a lot about myself. And even just, you talked about having a collaborator and kind of finding what you wanted to put in and what not to put in. And I felt like when I came out of this process, it was transformative for me in many ways, having gone through it. What was this like for you?
Gosh, man, I feel like it's been a consistent wheel, kind of going around and around of the kind of the same process, which is, you sit down, you do the strategy, you put some things on paper, then you have to actually execute. And then you actually have to go back and read what you wrote, and you're surprised at what you wrote. I realized that I write differently than how I talk. Like, me on paper is totally more eloquent.
Same.
Right, than be in real life. And you're just like, wow. And now even doing I'm working on the, the audio book, or at least by the time this comes out, the audio book will be done. But when we're recording this, I'm in the middle of doing the audio book, and you're going back through details. You're like, man, what did I write? Is that, I wrote that? And then you're like, this is the final manuscript. It's too late to take it out. I mean, you're just like, I'm out here, because you're so vulnerable in the process, and you're thinking so much about, how can I really help the reader? And, what will really be relevant? And then you get to a story and you're like, man, there were moments where my collaborator was like, no, you have to put that in. And I'm like, no. They're like, listen, you gotta have some drama. It's your life. People will resonate with the drama. They will resonate with the vulnerability. They will resonate. I'm like, I don't know if I want to tell my life. She's like, come on, so
I hear you.
I just, so it's been an interesting process, man. And like you said, I've learned so much just about me and, and what writing really is. So
yeah, the title for people who are listening, it's called A Greater Story: My Rescue, Your Purpose, and Our Place in God's Plan. Your story, my friend, is one that for the audience, I want you to tell it, because it right from the beginning, you and your twin sister were dealt a tough blow. Like, this wasn't like you fell into this amazing opportunity. This was hard from the very beginning for you, right?
Yeah. Born into poverty. And many of this, I found, I didn't find this out until about 6 years ago. So now I can tell the story kind of in real time. But the order of the events were kind of out, they were out of order in terms of when I found out. It wasn't until I was pretty much grown and moving about. I'm 31. So 6 years ago was roughly 25. And so 25 years after, all of this, I find out what actually happened before. So yeah, man, apparently born into poverty, extreme poverty. And our mother was 21 when she had us. She had 3 kids already. So that's 5 kids, age 21. Dad addicted to crack. A lot of the papers, when we look back through the closed adoption process and the closed adoption papers, that it says that they traced her steps, many of her steps, back to a prostitution house. So not sure if she was actually prostituting or if she was living there. but extreme poverty. And so, man, we, in the hospital, our mother makes the decision to give us up. And mainly, I believe, and now that I talk, because she didn't have enough money to take care of us. She didn't have enough money to take care of the three. And so now she's got five and gives us up. And I call it the Moses story. She kind of sends us up the river and, hopes that everything works out. And by the grace of God, it does. We get adopted by an amazing couple that had just given their life over to Jesus, for the first time. Dad was in his third marriage. So, he got it wrong. When I say wrong, he messed twice, in his words.
Yep.
But this is before Christ. My mom in her second marriage, first marriage was abusive. And so when they get together, it's like, this is our one opportunity to do it right. My dad adopted us when he was 50 something.
Wow.
And so he's 84 now. So you kind of do the math around that. Older in life, wanting to do the right thing. Mom wanted a kid, could not have a kid. They both want. And so they came and, adopted. And so that's kind of the origin. I don't know if you want me to keep going because I can't.
Well, let me stop there only because I want to intersect sports a little bit. I know that was a big part of Sam Collier's youth was sports. So let's intersect the conversation a little bit with your love for sports, and then we'll take this story to where it goes to.
100, man. So after we got adopted, they came and got us. One, the adoption lady said, the adoption lady, the lady that's running the house, she says, you don't want to adopt them. They're probably not going to be much mentally challenged, so on and so forth, because of where they come from, poverty, all of this. They adopt us anyway and say, no, we think God is doing something great in them. They're going to be awesome. And you'll find out later kind of how, again, I'm here. So it worked out. And, but my sister was extremely smart. She got all A's from kindergarten up to 12th grade. And I ended up here. And so my mother and my father had a knack. And I say mother, father, I mean the ones that adopted us, the ones that raised us. They had a knack for recognizing our abilities and our passions and getting behind those passions to help bring them out in a new way, even if we weren't necessarily great at something. But if we liked it and if we were okay, they would chase it. So sports, huge part of my life. It started with baseball.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone remembers the baseball trophies that you get as a kid.
Of course.
But okay, I had at least 10. I mean, and that's representing season. That's T-ball.
Now, were these participation trophies, Sam, or were they legit like I earned these trophies?
Can I say a little bit of both? Can I just say a little bit of both? I know they give you a trophy just for being there, but then also, we played hard. We didn't win any championships, so but we got pretty far. A ton of trophies. T-ball, Little League. I played shortstop. I tried to pitch for a season, and I just couldn't get the ball to go where I wanted it to go. It would go to the catcher, but.
But it took the long route to get there.
Right. Took the long route. I couldn't. Sometimes I'd be in the strike zone. Sometimes I wouldn't. Right. It just is what it was. But baseball went on for years, and then basketball kind of emerged, and it really became. And this is kind of your average young black male, young black boy's story in America. And this is not all, but your average. You grow up wanting to be Michael Jordan. You gravitate towards basketball. I remember the whole like Mike season. I want to be like Mike. That was me. I wanted to be like Mike. And so I played AAU for a while and really, had a dream, wanted to go pro. And around 8th grade, I stopped growing.
How tall are you?
And so my mother's like, I don't.
What'd you stop growing at? How tall are you?
5'11". 5'11".
Okay.
It's like almost there, right?
Almost,
like one more inch, and I might have been okay. Because I wasn't as good as Muggsy Bogues. I wasn't making it in like that. I needed a little bit of height.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I used to think that if I stretched, I could make myself taller. That's what I thought. And so I would every every night I'd be reaching up. I'd be trying to touch the ceiling. Like, oh, if I just reach, I'll get taller. And that just, it didn't work.
Didn't work out. Yeah.
But
Didn't get
man,
that NBA career.
Right. I mean, Space Jam was my movie. Every night I was doing 100 shots a night. Every night.
That's awesome.
Made my dad get a basketball goal, played AAU, all of that. And then shortly, kind of within that season, Mom said, all right, I think we need to think about something else because you're not going to keep growing. There may not be a future here, but you can sing. And so she kind of pushed me into the music route. So
did you see?
That's a little bit about my sports.
Did you see The Last Dance? Did you watch The Last Dance, the ESPN documentary on Jordan?
Man, I watched. I know this is horrible. I have the whole season. Obviously, it's on ESPN on demand, but I watched probably 2 or 3 episodes.
Okay.
I need to watch the whole thing. I'll be honest. I mean,
it's an investment. It's a lot of time to watch, to invest eight hours worth of television.
Yeah. Honestly, I stopped at Rodman. And, I thought I was going to go the distance. I was like, I saw Pippen's episode. I saw the first episode. And it was amazing. I need to go back, but incredible documentary.
I do recommend, if you're a Jordan guy, there's a season, I think it was out of season or episode 4 or 5, where they talk about the history of the sneakers and how the evolution of Air Jordans and how he kind of blew up through the early, it really kind of created something that nobody had ever done. And then watching the last couple episodes as he wins the title and you're just seeing him in his, just exhausted and all done with his career, basically, with the Bulls. It was really good. So I can't recommend it enough to go spend some time when you have the time. You're in the middle of selling a book right now, so you don't have any time, Sam. Come on.
But maybe, well, in between podcasts and radio interviews, that's going to be my thing. The Last Dance. But Air Jordan, you speak about the shoe. That's, first of all, I didn't have enough money to buy the shoes when I was young.
So did you ever get a pair? Do you have any Jordans?
I have probably 15.
15 pairs. Look at you, Sam Collier.
I'm making up for lost time, man. As soon as I got enough money to buy anything, I said, I got to go get the Air Jordan. And I just buy them and buy them. I've got the specialty ones. If this was a video, I would go and get some of my specialty ones and put them on. And we would have just a quick Air Jordan fashion show on Zoom right now, and it would be on.
So which Jordan's your favorite before we move off of this? Do you have a particular favorite shoe from a favorite year?
I'll be honest, I don't. I like certain styles. Obviously, the ones. I have a lot of ones. Okay. I have a lot of Jordan ones. I'm not as well versed in the numbers as I should be. I do think that for me, I was so inundated with Jordan. If it had his logo on it, I was give me that one and give me that one and give me. I don't know. I just like the way that one looks. Yeah, give me that one. So I do like some of the more vintage styles more. Yeah. Because they have a very cool look, more aerodynamic. So you got to be going into shoe language, sneaker language. Let
me tell you something. Full confession here. So I bought a pair of Jordans when I'm older than you. So I was in high school in 1990. Was my senior year going into 91. And that was the last. I had 3 pairs in high school. Those were the Jordan 4s, I think they were, and they're like purple and teal blue Jordans. They were white, and I bought those. Those were the last Jordans I had for 30 years. I never bought another pair. Not because I was against them. I just felt like, all right, A, they're expensive, and B, I didn't buy any. Well, watching The Last Dance, this guy went online and got a pair of Jordan 1s, black and blue. Black and blue. So they're all black with the blue color on it. And I have a pair. So you can thank ESPN and The Last Dance for this old man going out and buying a pair of vintage Jordans. But I did. I have a pair, and I've rocked them twice now when I go to church. And I feel like I'm like super protective of getting them dirty now, Sam. I don't know if you're that way. I've never been that way about shoes, but I still have them in the box.
What?
Kept them in the box, wore them twice, and then put them right back in the box.
Listen, no, you have to take care of them. You're going to spend that money on them. And I'm going to tell you this. It doesn't matter how old you are. A Jordan will make you look cool. I just felt like I was reliving my childhood or something, Did you get compliments?
I got a couple compliments. They're like, "What are those Jordans?" You know what? I was at CVS, which is the pharmacy up here, and I went in there to get like toilet paper or something in the middle of a pandemic. And the dude looks at me, he's like, "Nice shoes," and I'm like, Thanks, man. Appreciate it. You don't get compliments for your shoes in CVS unless you're wearing Jordans.
Unless you're wearing Jordans. So that's a lesson for anybody out there. It's like, go get some Jordans if you need compliments. Right?
That's it. Just put some Jordans on. You can wear them with anything and you get some compliments. People recognize it. We'll get back to our conversation with Sam Collier in just a little bit, but I want to tell you some more about Ronald Blue Trust. Listen, there's so many questions right now regarding financial futures, regarding what does our finances look like with COVID-19. Some people have lost their jobs. Others have their jobs, but there's a little uncertainty there. Many don't know what to do about the future. Ronald Blue Trust is the place to turn to right now. The company's certified financial planning professionals offer comprehensive financial planning and investment management services based on biblical principles to individuals and families across the U.S. You can learn more right now by going to their website, ronblue.com. ronblue.com. They'll answer any questions you might have. They are awesome. We trust them. We think you will too. Check them out. Ronald Blue Trust over at ronblue.com. Now back to our conversation with Sam Collier, the author and pastor, joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. I want to dive more back into your story because it's a really fascinating one. I know Steve Harvey is a big part of that. You mentioned him earlier. Can you kind of share as you got older, kind of the direction the Lord took you and how you ended up on first of all, he wrote the foreword to your book, and then you end up on his show as well, and this relationship begins. Can you kind of share a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, my parents were very interested in helping us maximize our potential and become and recognize certain things. And so for my sister, it was academics, and they I guess for them, they were rewriting the story that was spoken over us in the beginning, which was they won't be much because they come from poverty and all of these things. And my sister, again, my mother recognizes that she's smart, so puts her in magnet programs, all A's from kindergarten up to 12th grade, dual scholarship, Spelman, Georgia Tech, becomes an industrial engineer. And then, with me, it was music, it was all, and so they put me in a performing arts high school after we realized I stopped growing and I wasn't going to become MJ. That's right. Maybe I could be the other MJ, what I'm saying? Right. But this MJ, she's like, no, it's not happening. And so I started playing, 6 instruments by 10th grade, then got my first record deal, so on and so forth. And life just started working out, got into ministry, went to ministry school. I mean, just so many things. And so now, kind of after those spaces, as things are just kind of rolling, right? I mean, we're hitting on all cylinders, making the best of the opportunity, succeeding the best way we know how. My father, my adopted dad, he has a moment one day as we're doing what we do, which is kind of NFL. And you're going to love this part of the story. It was a tradition in our house called NFL football.
I've heard of it.
Okay, you've heard of it.
I've heard of it.
I believe
I'm a big fan.
It was a Sunday, right? Hopefully they will come back again. We know in a pandemic, I want to see them play again. We got to get the league back.
I hope so.
NFL football on a Sunday afternoon. And there was one rule that my dad had. No talking.
Don't bother him.
That's it. He said, we can all sit down and watch. If you talk, I mean, this was his rule. You got to get out.
Who's your dad's team? Who was your dad's team?
He's in Atlanta. He's Atlanta native.
So Falcons guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Atlanta, everything. Braves, Falcons, Hawks.
Yep.
We had the Thrashers, right? I don't know if we still have them anymore, but I mean, he's definitely, Falcons all day long. So we would just watch. And if the Falcons weren't playing, it would be, whoever else was on TV. Sure. But mostly Falcons. And so we're watching the Falcons and we're doing the rule. We're not talking. And he breaks the rule and starts yelling. So my dad's from the country, which I think we've talked a little bit about, and which means that yelling is normal talk for him. So he doesn't feel like if he's yelling, he's really loud. Like he's yelling on steroids. I mean, it's like, 50% versus 100. So he breaks and he starts yelling and he says, you need to go find your parents. You need to go figure out where you came from. And we're like, what are you talking about? And he says, well, you could grow up one day and you would marry your cousin and you would never know it.
Wow.
So just like, you've lost your mind. And he says, and Steve Harvey's going to help you do it. And I said, okay, okay, hold on. So let me put pin right there. Go back to the story a little bit, little backstory. So he had a barbershop on Auburn Avenue, which is the birthplace of the civil rights in Atlanta, right across the street from the Martin Luther King Jr. Center. And in the barbershop, the black barbershop, if you know anything about the black barbershop, there's a movie called Barbershop Out. Yes. And you can go see it. I think they got 3 different versions. You know, the black barbershop is kind of ground zero for black men in the black community. So it's kind of where we get our lessons. We learn how to be a man. You know, we talk about politics, religion, women, all of that. And so in the barbershop, you do the same thing every day. And this is my dad's barbershop. You cut hair, you eat, you take some naps, and you watch TV every day. That's what you do. And so every day he would watch Steve Harvey. So fast forward back to this moment. He said that as he was watching Steve Harvey, the Lord told him that Steve Harvey was going to help us find our biological family.
Just told you. The Lord said that.
The Lord told me. I said, you've lost your mind. And I got up and walked out of the room. Wow. Well, I found out 2 weeks later, he convinces my sister to write in. He was like, come on, the God told me. And, you know, we thought nothing was going to happen. A year goes by. There's a new producer that gets hired on the Steve Harvey show from Jerry Springer. And how do I know? Because she told me. Don't ask me why she told me. And so her first day on the job, they give her 100 pages, 100 papers. And they're different stories of people that have written in. She calls me and she says, hey, we've got 100 papers here on the desk. Your story was the top. We think we can help you find your parents. Do you want to do it?
Wow.
I said, let me call you back because my sister called me already angry about it. And I hit her. I said, do you want to do it? And she says, no. She says, I don't want to do it, but I feel like we have to do it. You know, when does this happen?
Yeah.
Long story short, they bring me and my adopted family up. Whole family, mom and dad. You know, I'm just saying adopted for reference, because people get confused. They're like, now, which one are you? And they bring us on the show. They say, we haven't found anybody, but we want to bring you on to make a plea that maybe they'll show up. So we get on, we do the plea on the commercial break. We talk a little bit. We come back after the commercial break. Steve says, hey, I know we told you that we didn't find your mother, but we're just kidding. She's here.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Eleanor come on out. And we meet our biological mother for the first time after 25 years on national television. And he says, and your siblings are here too, which we didn't know we had. And then they walk out. So that's the story, man.
Oh my gosh, man. I mean, the reactions, the emotions, all of that had to be going, everything had to be going through. You must have been I'm just thinking if that were me, I would have been just completely in shock and so nervous. I don't know.
Yeah.
How was yours?
All of the above and more. I describe it as I had 100 emotions going on, and I had so many going on, I didn't know which one to choose. And so if you watch the clip, which people, if they Google Sam Collier, Steve Harvey, it'll come up. If you watch the clip, you'll see me put my head down. And I'm putting my head down because I'm trying to collect myself, and because I'm like, you know, my sister's crying. I'm thinking about the national television audience going, I'm sure this is the moment where you cry.
Right.
So I'm like, let me not disappoint. I don't know how to, let me put my head down because they're going to think I'm crying.
Yeah. So it's part of it. You're actually thinking about like the showmanship part of this as well.
That's what I am. I'm like, oh, let me go. But really I'm going, what am I supposed to do right now? There's so many emotions. I don't know which one to choose. I'm angry. I'm mad. I'm sad. I'm happy. I'm grateful. Steve, I'm upset with you. I mean, so many things. And so honestly, and this is, you know, I don't know where people land. I felt the God speak to me and just say, snap out of it. You're on TV. And your biological mother is standing here. You need to show her some love. And so I snapped out of it, gave her a hug, and, you know, and we continue to embrace. So.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I love that. And I know you write about that a lot too. It's called A Greater Story in the book. So help us out with the idea of what the greater story is. You said it's your rescue, your purpose, and your place in God's plan.
Yeah.
Take it through from maybe after meeting your biological mom and your siblings to the idea of where this book comes into play. And so there's some time obviously in between there, but how that kind of all came together.
Yeah, a greater story came from a series that we did at North Point. And Jeff Henderson is an amazing man, but also before he was at North Point, he was at Chick-fil-A. And so Chick-fil-A corporate, he was over all sports marketing. So he has a marketing mind. So the way he speaks is in marketing campaigns. And so when he comes up with different series and different things, they're actually $1 million ideas, but for him, they're just flowing out of it. And so he calls me, and when we're talking about this story, and the series that we're in is called Cast Member. And the whole idea of Cast Member is that God is telling this grand story, and we all have a role to play in the story. The idea is to figure out what is our role and to play that role. We're a cast member in the story of God.
Yeah.
And as we're in the series, I'm kind of going through the message. I'm talking through it. North Point is really big on bottom line. So figure out one statement that you can say that wraps up everything in the one. If you've ever watched Andy Stanley, you'll notice there's always like one bottom line. And so as I'm going through the story, I said, Jeff, I need a bottom line. And he said, well, why don't you take the bottom line for the cast member series, which is when your story connects to God's story, it leads to a greater story.
Mm.
And out of that place, I built the brand. And I actually went to Jeff and I said, Jeff, you're probably going to throw this little tagline away because you do this every day. But I see a brand in this. I see a movement, a campaign. Can I take it? Can I use it? He said, of course, I'm never going to use it. And I said, well, here's so I stripped the last part of it, a greater story, out, and I created and made it into the TV show, the podcast, and the book, and the main idea of the story. And I think for me, the way it connected was, when we talk about this idea of when your story connects to God's story, at least a greater story, what we're essentially saying is that when you allow for your life to intersect with God's plans and his ways, his behaviors, his thoughts, whatever, when you allow that, it leads to something greater, that there is a greater story for all of us. The idea of a greater story is not that my story is greater than anyone else's. It's that God has a greater purpose for everyone. It really is the purpose-driven life on steroids. Well, in the millennial version, in the millennial way. Let me not even say steroids, because the purpose-driven life is the second highest selling book under the Bible.
Of all time.
So,
I know, it's crazy.
So it's not on steroids, but it is the millennial version of the purpose-driven life. God has a plan for us. He has a purpose. He has a greater story available for us all. How do we access it? We allow for our life to intersect with his. How do we help our life intersect with his and his story? Well, we put down our desires and the things that we want to do, and we pick up his desires, his behaviors, his thoughts, his leanings, and in that behavior change, in that mentality change, and our choices change. And as our choices change, it connects to the path that God has already designed for all of us to walk in.
That's very well said, Sam. I realized I didn't do my job as an interviewer here and follow up after you told that amazing story about your biological mom and meeting her. Did you continue the relationship? Are you still talking to her? What led to, or what was the aftermath after meeting her in terms of you and her? Did you just never see her again? What was that like?
Yeah, so we went on a journey, man. Me and my sister met with our family that night and, kind of shared some stories, and they told us about our origin and our background, so on and so forth. And then out of that, you move into what probably the psychiatrist would say is the real work, the real journey of meshing four families together now, because we've got our adopted family, which is our family, and then we've got our biological family. And so in that, I had to kind of give my sister permission to take some time, and work her way up to accepting and leaning into this new lifestyle and into this new mentality. For me, I went into the same thing, because for me, my biggest struggle was I don't know where to put you in my heart.
Right.
Because I can't put you in the mom space because that space is full. And I don't want to take mom out of that space, but you are my biological mother, so I need to put you somewhere. The question is, where do I put you? I can't put you in the friend zone because
Right.
you're not my friend. You're my biological mother. So I went on a journey of that and creating different guardrails and boundaries that would help us all matriculate and understand each other and progress in a very manageable way. So what that has looked like over the last 6 years, honestly, is we probably spend time texting every 2 weeks and just exchanging things. There's been a ton of social media interaction back and forth. And then every now and then we'll hop on the phone. But that has been really manageable for us because you can't microwave a relationship. Any relationship takes time to really be authentic and to be well. And so that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to set up a system that allows for all of us to plug in. Me and my brother talk a little bit more, because he's brother. For him, it wasn't difficult. It's always my brother. He's my sisters. Y'all, I know where to put y'all. Y'all come on in,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the journey that it's been, doing everything we can to honor our adopted family while also creating space for our biological family to come in.
He is Sam Collier. The new book is called A Greater Story, My Rescue, Your Purpose, and Our Place in God's Plan. It released August 4th, 2020. Very excited. Steve Harvey wrote the foreword to the book. You got to go out, pick it up. It's available now. Let's close with this question. It's sort of an open-ended question. It's a question we ask all of our guests here on Sports Spectrum. And It's an easy question, but with all that's been going on in the past 6 months, 5-6 months or whatever you want to say, with the pandemic and certainly with the racial unrest and all the race relation discussions that have been taking place, what are you learning from God right now? What's he teaching you, Sam Collier, right now in this season of life that we're in, as we're here now in August of 2020, and all that God has brought you to, but even just looking back at where we were 5 months ago to where we are now, what's the great lesson he's shown you? What's he teaching you?
I would say there's two lessons. The biggest is whenever there's change, there's always opportunity and there's always challenge. And that one lesson has been huge for me, because if we're not careful, as things change around us, we will spend so much time focused on the challenge of the change and miss out on the opportunities that come with the change. I always say, are you a blockbuster in a Netflix world? The internet changed everything. Yeah. And they recognized the opportunity that the internet provided, while Blockbuster spent so much time managing the challenges that they never innovated. And so for me, even down to the Black Lives Matter piece, to the race piece, to the pandemic, COVID, all of these things, I would ask the question, what are the opportunities that are now present because of these different things? For us, the opportunity within the racial unrest in our country is to have a more equitable world. I mean, how do we come together in a greater way to build and forge new relationships like never before, to move the needle faster than we ever have? I keep telling people I'm the most encouraged I've ever been in the last, in my lifetime, around race relations in this country, because we're finally starting to have the conversations. Yes. And so for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is our opportunity to do it, as opposed to focusing on, oh my gosh, why don't we know as much as we need to about one another? Or how come you don't agree with me? And what I could spend time on that. But if I spent too much time on that, I'd miss out on the opportunities. So I'd say that for race, as it pertains to COVID-19, I would say the same thing. There are unique opportunities available to us because of how the world has changed. Business, I always say so many businesses suffered. So many people experienced loss. I mean, my biological father died from COVID-19 a couple months ago. Never met him, talked to him twice on the phone, but was made aware of the situation. So I understand the challenges, but I also want to say there are opportunities. Businesses have suffered greatly, but not Zoom.
That's right. Right? Zoom is thriving right now.
Zoom hasn't. Netflix hasn't.
Yeah.
Disney Plus had. But it's because they're fashioned for the change. They saw the opportunity and they have continued. Zoom, I mean, I think 2 weeks or even a week into the pandemic, Zoom put so much money into upping their platform.
Yes.
Because they saw the opportunity. Facebook in itself has made some massive changes around creating their own version of Zoom and their own version of how do we help leaders that are at home. So there are opportunities that we've not had because of COVID that we can capitalize on. And I believe that if we do it, we will succeed in the midst of the challenges.
Sam Collier, thanks, man. This was a fantastic conversation. Great to get to know you. Hope to stay in touch and wish you really continued success. But I hope this book blows up, brother, for you. I think it's going to be a real game changer, a greater story, and people need to go pick it up now. So thanks for joining us, brother.
Jason Romano, you the man. Thank you, man. Yeah, buy the book, guys, please.
And many thanks to Sam Collier for joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. I really loved, specifically at the end, what he had to say about change. He said, change presents challenge and opportunity. We obviously have to go through the challenges, but we can also look for those opportunities. Sam, really wise for his years. I think he said he was 31. He's got this new book, A Greater Story, that he just wrote. It's available now everywhere books are found. You got to go pick that up. And give him a follow on social media. Just search Sam Collier, Collier, and make sure you told him that you found out about him from Sports Spectrum. And I'm thankful because Sam and I now can have a new friendship. This is a new friend of mine that I got just because I did this little podcast with him. And I'm grateful for Sam. Appreciate him. We appreciate our friends at Ronald Blue Trust as well, our sponsors today. You can check them out at ronblue.com for all your financial questions and concerns. Ronald Blue Trust, ronblue.com. We also want to direct you to our website, sportspectrum.com. That is the home for all of our content here at the Ministry of Sports Spectrum. You can check it out again at sportspectrum.com. You got daily devotionals there. You got articles all day long. And of course, every single podcast is there as well. Over 500 plus interviews that we've done, all available on demand to listen to at sportspectrum.com. And lastly, whatever app that you're listening to this podcast on, however you found us, thank you for joining us today and listening. We really do appreciate it. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, which a lot of our listeners definitely listen on Apple Podcasts, I listen to this podcast on Apple. Do us a favor, click subscribe. That helps you never miss an episode of the podcast. And then go leave a review if you would. The reviews actually help sort of bring the Sports Spectrum podcast up into the, the lexicon of people's interest in podcasts, and it helps get the word out about Sports Spectrum. So if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts app, that would be amazing. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time right here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.